we haven't gone into depth on any of this stuff. I mean, the one thing we talked about was we're still going forward, still trying to win every night. This is not a case where, we're going to start selling off assets. That's not the plan, that's for sure. So the next step is figuring out what that means in terms of rotations and lineup combinations, all that stuff.
Steve, have you ever won a big old knockout tournament in your life?
I don't know that I've ever participated in one,
really?
To be honest with you.
You know what knockout is, right? You know the game where everyone lines up on the free throw line and you shoot.
No,
yeah.
I know. It's just, I'm old. We just played horse when I was growing up.
Yeah, 21 and tip in and all those other fun games.
Right. That's right.
Steve, what a week it's already been, and it's only halfway over. So let's talk about Jimmy Butler first. How's he doing? Have you kind of talked to him? What's the emotional sort of state of the entire group after something like that?
Well, Jimmy is in good spirits. He keeps a pretty positive outlook on things, but we're all devastated for him and for us. I mean, we were really kind of finding our way, and I think Jimmy's been playing his best basketball the last couple of weeks, and felt like we really had a lot of momentum. And so obviously this is just a huge blow for him and for us, but. I feel mostly for him. I mean, this is such a great season for him, and he's in a great place and playing with Steph, and our team's winning. And then, at 36 to tear your ACL, it's just a brutal injury.
Yeah, it was terrible to see. And, you wonder about surgery and after surgery. Do you expect Jimmy to come back and be a part of the team in that mentor role?
Yeah, he'll be back. I tore my ACL in college. It's kind of a 9 months till you can play, although it's different now. I mean, they've moved the timetable up from when I've, tore mine 40 years ago. But, within 8-9 months, he's probably playing basketball. He's probably back, sometime early next season, I would guess. Obviously, all that depends on his own personal rehab, but the expectation is that he'll be back. And I think the way he plays, I think his style of play should hold up fine after an ACL, given that he plays with his brain. He's got such a strong body, strong fundamental base. I think he'll return at a high level, but he'll be 37. And the main thing for me is guys like that, Steph, Dre, they only get so many opportunities. And this was a real opportunity. I felt strongly that, and I've said this over and over again, just give us a chance. And I meant that. I know I stirred up the hornet's nest a couple of weeks ago when I talked about the dynasty, aging. But I felt strongly that we could play with anybody when healthy, and we were showing that. And that's why this is, just so disappointing for everybody.
Steve, what about during rehab? Does he plan to be around the team and continuing in a kind of the big brother role that he's been to some of the young players already?
Yeah, I don't know exactly, what his plan is, but he's following the protocol set forth by Rick Celebrini and Armando, and his, our group's staff is going to handle the rehab but given that he's going to be immobile here for a while, I'm sure he'll get home to see his kids in LA and eventually be back up here.
Yeah. A lot of people have pointed to the Raptors matchup. They're long, they're athletic, as a tough one for you guys, but I just wonder what your view specifically as you're reworking rotations and just coming to grips with reality, how much of that had to do with the outcome of the game and the way you guys played?
Well, first of all, give them credit. I mean, they were 30th in the league in three-point percentage coming into the game. And then shot 20-34. So, they lit it up. They hadn't been making shots in recent games, and they took it to us, and everybody caught fire, and we couldn't slow them down. So last night was mostly about them and Toronto just playing a great game. Obviously, we didn't have it. We couldn't get any stops defensively. A letdown, an emotional letdown is human nature coming off the injury, third game in 4 nights. It all plays a role, but bottom line is you got to go out and outplay your opponent, and we weren't able to do that.
Obviously forced to have a different starting lineup, and you put Pods in to have that extra ball handler on the floor. What did you think of that approach and of Pods in the starting lineup and how that might work going forward?
Well, for sure, we need extra ball handling and passing to make up for Jimmy's absence. Jimmy is obviously our other shot creator besides Steph. So you lose him. We knew exactly how Toronto was going to guard us. They guarded Steph the same way in Toronto last month, and so putting BP out there felt like the right option to have someone else who could create plays, create shots, and I thought BP played well. Last night was not really about combinations or lineups. It was just about, one team just lighting it up and coming in and earning a victory against us. But great homestand overall to go 6-2, found some momentum. I'm confident that we can continue to play the way we've played, but obviously you're subtracting one of the best players in the league. We can't ignore that.
Steve, you've mentioned that you will need to tinker a little bit, obviously, with rotations. But I also wonder, at about the halfway point with a trade deadline 2 weeks away, what can you share with the audience in terms of this kind of meeting of the minds that I'm sure you and Mike and Joe and everybody have had since the injury in terms of sort of the goals and the outlook and the strategy of the rest of the season?
Well, this is still pretty new, and it's not like we've had a big organizational meeting. The injury came first night of a back-to-back. We've took off this morning. Mike and I have had a conversation. He's on the trip, but we haven't gone into depth on any of this stuff. I mean, the one thing we talked about was we're still going forward. We're still trying to win every night. This is not a case where, we're going to start selling off assets. That's not the plan, that's for sure. We think we can be really competitive and play at a high level, and so that's the plan. So the next step is figuring out what that means in terms of rotations and lineup combinations, all that stuff.
We always talk about next man up in football, but clearly here, when Jimmy goes out, somebody has to step in, and it was Jonathan Kuminga, especially in some prolonged second half minutes. Is it to be expected that we're going to still see more Jonathan Kuminga now going forward with Jimmy out?
Yeah, for sure. I think, part of the reservation of playing him in recent weeks is that it's tough to play him with Jimmy. It's just not a great combination. I've said that, publicly. And then when you play shorter burst guys like Guy and Gary, those are better roles. Those are better players for those roles than Jonathan. But when Jimmy's out, there's definitely a role for JK, and he will play a role. And I was really pleased with his play last night. I thought he did a great job of staying ready and keeping his rhythm, and he played a great game last night.
Yeah, how difficult is that to do what he did, to kind of be stagnant for that length of period of time and then come into a game and look like he did?
It's hard. It had been about a month since he played, in a real game, and so I give him credit for staying ready and putting the work in to keep his rhythm, keep his conditioning up where it needed to be.
Steve, I think we obviously all get that this is different than just someone who had not been playing because he is at the end of a bench on a basketball team. Last week you said this is just a really difficult situation. So in the last 48 hours since Jimmy's injury, How have you navigated that with Jonathan to arrive now at this point?
Well, there's communication that happens after the injury, and we were on the same page going into last night. He knew he was going to play. I wasn't exactly sure how it would look last night going into the game, but was definitely committed to playing him, and he knew that, and he was ready. And now we move forward. We have to decide how we want to start. What lineup combinations make the most sense, not only for the first five, but for the minutes when Steph goes out, because that's where Jimmy really would take over games, and those are the most concerning minutes for us now, to not have a dominant shot creator in those minutes, and so we have to assess everything as a staff in terms of who we're going to start, who's in the second unit, what the rotation will look like, and we'll figure it out. But we have not gotten there yet. We haven't even decided yet who's going to start.
Do you look back at last year before Jimmy arrived, particularly with Jonathan Kuminga, and see when he was successful and what combinations? Does that help to guide what you're going to do now that Jimmy is going to be gone for the rest of the year?
Somewhat, but our team was different then too. We didn't have Al Horford. We didn't have Quentin Post. He was in Santa Cruz at this point last year. We didn't have DeAnthony Melton. He was injured already. So we feel like we have a pretty good handle on our team this year, and all of our individual players, especially the guys like who have been here for several years. So we have a pretty good idea of who plays well with whom, and combinations and that sort of thing. And that will all factor in for sure.